Well, hello, this is Ina from Taproot Tarot, and in my birthday haul, I showed this tarot by Pierre Cheminade from Yves Renaud, and I bought it because I was struck by the beautiful faces and the skill of the application of the colors. I think it's just an absolutely gorgeous deck, and that made me think, you know, what is the most beautiful TdM? The Madenié is often considered to be the most beautiful because the faces are really gorgeous. And the color application is also quite skilled. But then we have the Chosson, which is also absolutely gorgeous in its line work. However, this deck is created from an older worn out set of wood blocks in all likelihood. And the coloration is a little more imprecisely applied. But this is the basis of the contender deck, which has become kind of the standard Tarot de Marseille. And I've never done a walkthrough of any of these, so I thought, why don't we go ahead and compare the three and decide which one we think is the most beautiful. Now, if you know me, you might know that my taste runs to the little bit more quirky. I really enjoy like the Arnoux and Amphou style deck, which has a more of a it's considered to be a pre-cubist style line work. The Tarot Renan is very quirky and very folksy, and I love those types of decks. But these are more conventionally beautiful, so let's compare them. These are both Yves Renaud decks, and I've kept them in their order. At this point, I don't shuffle or read with my Yves Renaud decks. I keep them as reference pieces. This, Pierre Madenié by Marianne Costa, is my third Madenié deck. I have her mini version, which is a tiny little baby deck. It's super cute. But it is an Argentinian production, and those have the tendency to be a little flimsier in quality, so it doesn't have very good coating on it. So I don't use that one too much. I also have the Mary Packard Madenié, which is kind of huge. These are larger than tarot size, which is unusual for a historical TdM style deck, but I do believe those are the original size for the Madenié. Now, timeline, you can see this one is dated 1736, which we used to think was the date of production for these cards, but it has since been determined that they were produced in 1639. So this is the first edition of this deck, which is a more pure facsimile with square corners. The second edition does say 1639 on the cover. It has a little bit of restoration done to the cards. The corners have a slight rounding to them, and the cardstock is a little better. The Madenié from 1709 used to be considered the oldest Type 2 TdM before this was redated as 1639. The Chosson was made in Marseille. The Madenié was made in Dijon, France. Tarot of Pierre Cheminade, 1742, is going to be our latest deck today. It was made when the card maker was 53 years old and was quite a master, and we'll see evidence of that in the skillful application of color in this deck. And the faces are just absolutely gorgeous. I think this one is definitely in the running for being the most beautiful of these three. Now, this deck was actually made in the Piedmontese region of Italy. Pierre Cheminade is from France. He and his family were settled in various places, largely it's Grenoble, I think. His father was also Pierre Cheminade. There's also a Charles Cheminade in Grenoble, and there's a pretty famous deck by that creator as well. So they're probably all family. Again, though, this deck was created in Italy, but retains the traditional pattern of a standard Type 2 TdM. So it is still considered a straight TdM deck, and not any kind of a variation, even though it was produced in Italy. These both come with wrappings. This is the one for the Cheminade, and you can see the dolphins represent the Dauphin of France, and the fleur-de-lis also represent France, just as a shout to the origins of this card maker. The Chosson similarly came with a beautiful wrapping paper, and these are the original wrappers of these decks, which are preserved in museums with the decks themselves. Just beautiful. They both come with some information cards as well. My Chosson is 1461 out of 3000, and this is 909 out of 1500 for my Cheminade. This Madenié is actually my newest of these three. I had my eye on this version for quite a while. It is a Spanish production, and it was difficult to get in the United States. I finally found an affordable copy from Mexico that they were somehow able to ship to me pretty inexpensively. So this one comes in a box that opens like this. It has some lovely information cards on it. Here are the backs. A little bit of a key. And then it comes with this book in Spanish. I'm a big fan of Marianne Costa. Oh, it also has this lovely wrapper, which I went ahead and kept. The book is beautiful, and I follow her on her social media, and I really enjoy what she has to say. So I might hold up my translator to this and check it out sometime. I haven't looked at the book yet, though. This is the Madenié deck, and I do use this one. It's large. It's larger than a standard TdM. Again, I think this is the original size of the Madenié. It has a cardstock that is rose petal. It's a little bit, it's quite sticky, I'm not gonna lie, and the cards are pretty thick. But as is typical of decks from Spanish-speaking countries, it is so bendy and lovely. So I kind of feel like with the bendiness and the rose petal finish, she was maybe trying to go for a Robledo style deck. I wouldn't say that this meets the standards of a Robledo deck, but it is still lovely. It's a little bit of work to shuffle with it and work with it, but I still find it enjoyable. So I definitely do use this one. Here is the Chosson. I'm sure I'm pronouncing all of these completely wrong. And again, these wood blocks were the ones either used to make the Convera deck, or at least the Convera was very much based on it. I'll get into more details on that history in my part 2 of the Convera popular history video. And here is the Pierre Cheminade. And we will just admire these lovely cards together. One characteristic of the Madenié is that this red is filled in here. These faces have probably the sweetest expressions, but these ones are super expressive. You see what I mean? This is the Cheminade here. Look how expressive that face is. And the Chosson compared to the Cheminade. We have brighter colors in the Chosson, and we often have very pink skin, and pinks used throughout. Darker, more subdued colors in the Madenié, and again, very skillfully applied color in the Cheminade. These Marianne Costa cards do stick together. I even thought I was missing my a 10 of coins, I think. I couldn't find it because it was stuck to the valet of coins. I have to say, this Madenié Empress is kind of probably winning here. Although the Cheminade has some personality for sure. Now look at the personality in the Cheminade Emperor. I love it so much. I couldn't resist this deck because the faces are just fantastic. Pretty careless with the color application here in the Chosson, but really beautiful line work is visible. The Chosson and the Cheminade. The faces and the coloration and the quirks are what you kind of look at to figure out which TdM you prefer. Here are the backs as well. This is the Chosson and the Cheminade. This poor Cupid looks sunburned. But very interesting faces throughout. There's always a lot of discussion as to who exactly these initials are. Here we have GS, PM, and PC, all three with the spelling of chariot as charior, which may not be a misspelling, it might be the convention. Again, we're at a time when written language was kind of still being figured out, printing presses were new, and we don't have standardization yet. It's an intense look there. Cool eyebrows in the Madenié. Really sweet face in the Cheminade. So these might be the engravers. Sometimes there are artists that are separate from the engravers, and then there's the master card makers. Those could all be different people. Justice, all with the convention of an I instead of a J and a V instead of a U, which is just easier for printing. And a lot of these do have a period after the title. Not in the Chosson though. I think the Cheminade wins the beauty pageant between the Justice cards. Really lovely. What do you think? I love a lovely hermit card face, and look at him. Isn't he just sweet? Here you can see the wear and the age on these wood blocks, where there probably used to be more detail there, and it is quite lovely. But this is much better made and also a beautiful detail. The Madenié is lovely, but yeah, I think this Cheminade is the winner here too. Unusually, we actually have the most clarity in the Chosson for the Wheel of Fortune. Interesting, a different perspective here. The monkey is facing right at you. He's more at a 3/4 angle in the Cheminade. When I first got this, the Chosson, I was struck by the beauty of this lion card. You know, lions in the TdM are usually known for not being the most attractive beasts. But look at this guy. I showed you this deck in a previous video called Thrift Books Haul or something like that, and definitely have already showed this lion because he's just a handsome lion. This one's a little murkier, but we can still see some good line work in there. But not quite the detail for any of these that the Chosson has. So I'm declaring the Chosson the winner of the strength card. Got some very curly haired hanged men here, not so curly in the Cheminade. It is often noted that the Madenié is almost identical to the Chosson. And it used to be assumed that the Chosson was based on the Madenié, but now we believe this is from 1639 and this is from 1709, so it's probably the other way around. But the line work is very close. Definitely more of a variation here in the Cheminade, but I really like his facial expression. It's pretty great. Oh, and please do check out this death card. Look at this grumpy guy. Much more expressive than either of the other two death cards. And so comparing that with these two, you can see why the Madenié and Chosson, and then therefore the Convert, are all compared. They're all definitely related. Another look at this lovely fellow. And exceptionally sweet temperance in the Madenié. Honestly, they're all gorgeous though. But just a little quirkier and maybe more interesting in the Cheminade deck with extremely skilled color application. We have an M in temperance here, but with these two, it's spelled with an N, and that was just convention for the time. So if you ever get a modern recreation of a TdM and temperance is spelled with an N, that's not a mistake. That is based on these decks. All the imps are pretty fun. Sorry, I didn't mean to show you the devil's bits so close there, but I wanted you to see the imps' faces. They all have personality, which I really adore. I actually really love the coloring, as imprecise as it may be, of the Chosson here. Just the contrast is really fun and lovely. But certainly much more skillful in the Cheminade. All of the stars are quite gorgeous. The Madenié is especially sweet. But kind of almost modern in the Cheminade. In the traditional contender deck, we do see a blue crustacean below the water, but we have some color in all three of these. With an especially colorful moon in the Madenié. But more contrast in the Chosson. And again, more skill in the Cheminade. We have some fairly green suns. I always love a green sun. These kiddos are kind of cold in facial expression. But the Cheminade, they actually look like cute little babies. Or, you know, like sweet preschoolers interacting, which I think is very sweet. So I think I like this Cheminade, although the Madenié sun is gorgeous. But this one has a fun expression. These two, very similar. Almost identical facial expressions. And a little quirkier here. This Judgment, which I kind of love. I love the quirkiness. Again, this Madenié is sticky. Okay. So actually all very different faces for the central figures here. Almost a more modern look here. But honestly, a lot of personality in this central figure in the Cheminade. All quite lovely. Let's compare lions, actually. The Madenié famously has a very silly expression on the lion and a rather cycloptic looking ox. Probably not intended to be cycloptic, more of a profile view. With more of a silly looking ox there and a very silly lion as well. But not quite as smug as the Madenié lion. by far the most skillfully rendered critters here. Look at the expression in that ox, as well as the lion. I actually really love this eagle here. And the fool, Lamont, the madman. All quite similar. More similarity between the Chosson and the Madenié. With a little more quirkiness to this guy. All right, we'll go through these nice and quickly for you. Can you hear the kiddos playing basketball in the street out front? These are my neighbor kids. It's been pretty chilly and drizzly. We had some severe storms. It's that time of year. So good for them for getting out and playing in the street, even though it's soggy and chilly out. Beautiful colors here. Quite a difference in all of the faces between these three. Actually, quite like the expressiveness of the Chosson here. Quirky Cheminade, but I think the Chosson is the winner of this card. These two are very similar. Pretty sweet Knight of Batons and a fairly stern horse. But compare that to this extremely stern horse and a much more quirky Knight of Batons. Love it. Queen of Batons. Quite lovely in all three of them. I like a grumpy Queen of Batons. These are all pretty sweet. I think she has the most personality. Very different Kings of Batons. I'm going to say this one is probably the most detailed and beautiful. Look at his outfit, his armor. He looks sweet and happy though. Very nicely done face in this one. But I'm going to say this armor in the Chosson is gorgeous. So I think the Chosson wins that card. Again, we'll go through the pips nice and quick. This is not the usual order I put cards in, but I still had both of my Everno decks in order. So these are the orders they came in. And I reordered my Madenié to match. Really beautiful actually right here. Nice contrast and detail in the Chosson compared to the other two. And for the most part, this Cheminade had more skillful color application. But here, the Madenié is pretty good, but really the Chosson wins out, I think. There's a little bit of, you can see some scraping or smudging movement there. But yeah, overall, this one turned out the best, I think. So there is some variation, which I think is super interesting. More variation between these two in the courts than in the triumphs, for sure. Lots of pinks. I have a lot of pink hair going on here. And he's got a sassy feather in his cap. He's the only one of the three. And he also has a more detailed lace on his sleeve, but more of a gauntlet on his sword-bearing arm. That's interesting. So yeah, some interesting detail, but a very quirky face in the Cheminade, and pink hair like the Chosson, but well, pretty pink hair here, but it's a little more beige in the Madenié. And you can see Marianne Costa kept the areas where there are other, you know, printing phantoms from other cards. There's a name for that. I might think of it. But yeah, I think with how fancy he is with his feather and his lace and his expression, I kind of like the Madenié in this one. Actually really lovely detailing in the Chosson. And I honestly think his face is too cherubic for a Knight of Swords. It's a sweet face, but do we want a sweet Knight of Swords? I don't know. He's a little more over it. I think either of these. I like this horse too. Look at his face. Queens of Swords, all lovely. More of a printing error on her eyes. Either that or she is super tired. I don't blame her. The blues in this Madenié are really gorgeous. And it's a nice detailing, I've noticed, more so in the blues of the Madenié. But look at her face, it's so good. Love it. We have a lot of stamping visible. There's an eagle. Pretty cool. And this used to be considered a misprint when it was considered to be a deck from 1742. And I may have misstated the date before, but it's now considered to be from 1672. I think I said something completely different. But you can see that Chosson did add his name. That's very clearly not original to this woodblock. And that date as well. So these woodblocks could even be older. It's kind of wild to think about. So this is, the Chosson is now considered officially the oldest TdM Type 2, rather than the Madenié from 1709. And this all looks like it fits much better. So you can see this Chosson was like erased someone else's work and put his on top of it. Whereas this fits. And Serval is, I think, the city in Piedmont where these decks were created. So 1742 there. Again, considered a French-style deck, but made in Italy. Here we've got some fleur-de-lis, as they are both made in France, Dijon and Marseille. And here we have this gorgeous eagle. Isn't that beautiful? I do love the colors here. I really love the Chosson in this card. Look how lovely he is. But quite a sweet sanguine face in the Madenié. And a little more personality here in the Cheminade. So we're noticing some patterns here. Very similar between these two, Chosson and Madenié. but really unique here. Look at her. I love her. So good. And again, just beautifully applied coloration. Super similar. Beautiful colors here though. A little bit different personality here. Ooh, a little flourishy here in the Madenié. And remaining more standard in the other two. Yeah, this is quite lovely. Quite traditional dolphins or serpents here. Fleur-de-lis. And GS again. And some kind of seal here. We have the, I think it's Sforza, wreath of laurels, coronet, and palm frond here, which is interesting. That's what we see in the Ace of Swords, but it's carried over here in the Two of Cups. And here again, probably coronet, palm frond, and laurels. That's neat. And these are much more, at least the one on the right is looking like the lion, which becomes more standard in later Italian decks. How interesting is that? So the Italian decks that, like the Sopraffino, which are derivatives of the TdM, but using more sophisticated German engraving techniques inspired by Gutenberg. Lovely flowers all throughout. I really do like the coloration in the Chosson though. It's the contrast of the line work. It might be considered more less sophisticated, but I like it. So what does that say about me? I have some legendary sweetness here in the Madenié. This looks a lot more like the Convert. But look at how realistic the Cheminade is comparatively. And here we have the crown of flowers instead of the headband. And a crown of flowers here, so that's interesting. Cheminade and Chosson would have been considered contemporaries, probably. Although the place I read that, it may have been written before the Chosson was redated. But it could be that Chosson was older, but still producing at a similar time as Cheminade. These are all very different. All these Queens of Cups were extremely different from each other. And I kind of love them all. I'm gonna have to say the contrast in the Chosson for the King of Cups makes him my favorite of these three. And he has kind of an interesting face, although he is quite expressive. All right, these were lovely, weren't they? I enjoyed going through them with you. I'll do a quick shuffling demo with this Madenié for you. Sometimes I shuffle it in thirds. It's actually a really nice shuffle in thirds, so let me show you that. I do find that easier with these bigger decks sometimes. So yeah, it sticks a little with the rose petal, but I still just find it really fun to shuffle and work with. It's going to be more work than a smaller deck. So if I don't feel like going with through the bother, I might not, but I've still been enjoying it. It doesn't overhand very well at all because of the rose petal finish. But the cards are beautiful, they're soft and lovely to work with, so I've still been enjoying it quite a bit, and I look forward to delving into the book as well with the help of my phone for translation. So, just a little recap. That was Marianne Costa's Tarot, El Tarot de Marseille, and this is a Madenié, 1709. We have the first edition of the Francois Chosson, which is dated 1736. The second edition is dated 1672. And then we have the Tarot of Pierre Cheminade, which is a French tradition TdM, which happened to be printed in Italy. And that is from 1742. That's what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.